We're always hearing about the cloud, right? It's where our pictures go, where our favorite shows are streaming from, where we get all our work done. But what if I told you the cloud isn't some fluffy thing in the sky? It's actually a planet-spanning network of massive windowless buildings, all connected by thousands of miles of cables under the ocean and using a ton of electricity. So today we're going to pull back the curtain on this incredible physical machine and the core services that run pretty much everything in our digital lives. So that leads to the million-dollar question, right? Where does the cloud actually live? Well, you can forget about the sky. The answer is way more down to earth. It's a massive interconnected system of real physical hardware. Let's start digging into what that system actually looks like. When you get right down to it, global cloud infrastructure is this worldwide web of physical stuff: servers, storage drives, and network cables. You can kind of think of it as the planet's central nervous system, built by giants like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And it's all designed from the ground up to be super flexible, reliable, and secure, making sure you get amazing performance, whether you're in Tokyo or Toronto. Okay, to really get a handle on this, we need to look at its physical foundation. We're going to zoom in, starting from a view of the entire planet and going all the way down to a single room full of servers. You know, the whole system is built in layers, kind of like one of those Russian nesting dolls. At the very top, the biggest layer, you've got regions. These are huge geographic areas, like North America or Asia Pacific. Now, inside each region, there are a few availability zones, or AZs, and then each AZ is made up of one or more physical data centers. And that's the actual building with all the blinking lights and whirring servers. Now, what's really cool is this idea of an availability zone. Each one is completely isolated from the others with its own power and cooling, but they're all connected by these super fast private networks. This power grid analogy, it's perfect. It's all about resilience. So if a disaster takes out an entire data center or even a whole AZ, your stuff just keeps on working from one of the other zones. No problem. So you might be thinking, if the cloud is everywhere, why should I care which region I choose? Well, it actually matters a lot. For one, you've got to think about local laws and data rules. Then there's speed. You want your servers physically close to your customers to cut down on lag. Also, not every cloud service is available in every single region. And you'd be surprised, but the price can be totally different depending on where you are in the world. All right, so we've got the physical layout down. We know where the cloud is. But what does this whole thing actually do for us? We can basically boil it down to 3 core services that are the engine behind almost everything we do online. This really lays out the 3 pillars perfectly. First up, you've got compute. That's the raw processing power, the brains of the whole operation. This is what runs your apps, whether it's on a virtual machine or some fancy new serverless function. Next is storage, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a safe place for all your data to live. And finally, there's networking. That's the essential glue that holds everything together, directing all the traffic and making sure everything can talk to each other. Of course, with all this power and data flying around, there's a huge question. Who's in charge of keeping it all safe? And the answer isn't so simple. It's actually a partnership, like a digital handshake between the cloud company and you, the user. The key thing to understand here is what's called the shared responsibility model. And the difference is simple, but it's absolutely critical. The provider is responsible for security of the cloud. That means the physical buildings, the actual servers, the core network. They lock the doors of the data center. But you are responsible for security in the cloud. That's your data, your apps, and who you give access to. You have to make sure you don't leave your digital windows wide open. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And for a lot of people, maybe the most important one: money. How do you actually pay for all this incredible computing power? And more importantly, how do you keep from accidentally breaking the bank? Here's the one thing you absolutely need to remember about cloud pricing, because it's a total game changer. You only pay for what you actually use. Gone are the days of spending a fortune on servers you might not even need. It's a utility model, just like your electricity bill. You flip a switch, you pay. You turn it off, you stop paying. So how does that pay-as-you-go thing actually work? Well, the basic idea is you get billed for exactly what you consume, sometimes down to the second. But the providers want to keep you around, so they offer some pretty sweet deals. The more you use, the bigger the volume discount you get. And if you know you're going to need a certain amount of power for, say, a year or 3, you can commit to that and get a massive discount with something called reserved pricing. Now, you might be worried about some bug in your code accidentally spinning up thousands of servers and running up a crazy bill.
That's a fair concern, but the providers have already thought of that. They have built-in safeguards called service limits or quotas, and they're there to protect you from surprise costs and to protect their systems from being overwhelmed. These limits basically come in two flavors. You've got soft limits, which are like a default safety setting. If you know you need more power, you can just ask them to raise the limit. But then there are hard limits. And those are exactly what they sound like. They are fixed, non-negotiable, and usually tied to the actual physical limits of the hardware.
So, to bring this all home, this quote really hits the nail on the head. The cloud isn't just an idea, it's a very real, physical system built in layers, from data centers to availability zones to entire regions, all working together to give us a secure, fast, and flexible platform for our digital world. And that leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. We've established that the cloud is this amazing global network that we can tap into from anywhere. So why, after all that, does geography, the physical spot on a map where a data center sits, still matter so much? It's something to think about, because the answer involves everything from the speed of light to international law.